In this presentation, we'll look at who we ought to have as the members of the lineup who aren't the suspect. The people that we know are innocent. These people are known as distractors or foils. A few things are obvious. The foils should be wearing similar clothes to the suspect and not be completely different from them, where there have been cases of officers using foils who are a different race or even a different gender from the suspect. However, one standard practice is that police often try and make the foils look as similar to the suspect as possible. Sound sensible? Well, some researchers have argued that a better practice is to make sure all of the foils match the verbal description of the criminal that the eyewitness has already provided. This isn't quite the same thing as choosing similar people, as similar looking foils may still have some characteristic that the eyewitness has already discounted via their verbal description. For example, imagine they're completely certain about the criminal's eye colour, and some of the foils have a different eye colour. This means that those foils don't match the verbal description and are essentially worthless, as it's likely that the eyewitness will rule those people out, and this effectively reduces the number of people they have to choose between in the lineup. This in turn means that they're more likely to pick the suspect by chance, which is not what we want. Only using foils that fit the eyewitness's verbal description of the criminal means that we can choose foils that may vary considerably on characteristics that are not part of the eyewitness's verbal description. It's possible to be too successful in finding similar looking foils. If we take this to an extreme, imagine a situation where we manage to find a number of foils that look absolutely identical to the suspect. Even an eyewitness with a perfect memory of the criminal won't be able to tell them apart for all the wrong reasons. It isn't because they don't know what the criminal looks like, it's because every member of the lineup looks exactly like the criminal, so nobody would be able to tell them apart. Well, hopefully that's provided some ideas of the sort of factors that can influence the effectiveness of a lineup. Though, as with all of these presentations, we've only just scratched the surface of the topic. If you want to dig deeper, check out the further reading resources we've provided to back up these presentations, or follow up some of the on-screen citations. So, now let's have a look at a lineup that takes into account all of the recommendations from psychologists that I've just talked about. So, here we see the use of a double-blind procedure where the administrator doesn't know which of the lineup members is the suspect. The eyewitness has been told that the suspect may or may not be present in the lineup. Each of the lineup photos is seen in sequence, with the eyewitness making an absolute yes-no judgment on each picture. However, before the main lineup, the eyewitness is shown a blank lineup made up entirely of foils to see if they make a false ID or not. The foils have been chosen on the basis that they match the eyewitness's verbal description of the criminal rather than just looking similar to the suspect. This is a nice example of how the psychological research literature can yield evidence-based recommendations for a standard police procedure that maximise the chance that a lineup will be fair and minimise the chance that an innocent person will be convicted. So now we can reveal whether you managed to successfully pick out the criminal from the lineup. In fact, the criminal wasn't in the lineup at all. If you correctly decided that none of the people in the lineup was the criminal, then if we had prizes, you would win one.